What's happening, guys? Randy Rector here. Have you heard of StaffPad? This might actually be one of the coolest composition apps that I think I've ever used. So does it replace Sibelius, Dorico, Finale, MuseScore? Maybe. Before we get started, a quick disclaimer. I reached out to the guys at StaffPad and said, hey, this app looks awesome. I would like to show this off on my channel. And they agreed to send me some software free of charge. That said, they're not paying me to make this video, and they're not getting a chance to preview this video before it goes public. So what can you expect today? Well, I wanted to do like a high-level overview of this app, go over some of the pros and the cons of using an app like this on an iPad to compose music, and talk about some of the features that you get with an app like this. What this is not gonna be is a tutorial on how to use StaffPad. So if you're looking for something like that, I'd highly recommend checking out their YouTube page because they have some incredible videos. They're really well shot, really well organized, and they go over all of the basic features and a lot of the advanced features that are found in StaffPad. Which brings me to my first point. StaffPad is one of the first composition tools that I've used that really parse down the information that you see on the screen. The UI is sleek, it's incredibly minimal, they've done a really good job of hiding the features that you just don't need, and it has just about every feature that you commonly use. Now this is great, but a lot of these tools you either have to stumble upon or watch a guide on how to actually use these features. So while it's great, the learning curve to use this app is a little bit higher than I expected. In this video, I'm gonna be comparing to Sibelius a lot. Sibelius is what I use as my daily driver. It's how I arrange charts. I'm very familiar with it. And to be honest, I think Sibelius is a bit of a dumpster fire. I think that the company forgot that they make an app, and then every time someone reminds them and says, hey, can we have this feature? They say, sure, they put it in the top bar, making that top bar so bloated and cluttered that you can't figure out where you need to go to do basic functions. Like, are you really more likely to change the color of your notes rather than adding notes to begin with? I don't understand their logic on where they put things. It's extremely confusing. And guess what? It's $230 per year for that software. I know, it's crazy. All of that said, there are certain compromises of using a software like this, and it's really more compromises of using an iPad versus using a desktop. Things like note input, batch actions, large format changes, these things will always be easier with a large display and a mouse and a keyboard. But with StaffPad, you've got, a 10 or 12-inch iPad that can literally go anywhere. You have that convenience, and you have the added convenience of using an Apple Pencil, which is a really cool experience when you're composing music. Not only are the sounds inside the app really good, but you can actually also upgrade and get some additional sample packs, although they are kind of costly, and I don't think you can actually use them in other workstations like Pro Tools or Logic. It's limited to the iPad app, I'm pretty sure. That said, if this is your daily driver, it's kind of a no-brainer. These sample packs are unreal. Let me show you what I mean. So I'm gonna use the stock sounds inside the app, and I'm gonna compare that against the stock sounds in Sibelius. Take a listen to this. Okay, editor Randy here. I think the funniest part of this whole experiment is that the samples you're listening to were actually Sibelius demos. These were arranged in Sibelius to show off how good it can sound. I really have no idea how composers use a program like Sibelius to try to listen back to their compositions. It just sounds awful. So where does an app like this fit into the ecosystem of tools that we as composers have available to us? And I think one of the biggest plays is for the composer on the go. Someone who wants the flexibility to jot down ideas as they come to them, work on music on their couch, do some different arrangements, testing different voices. But I think the biggest play here is for schools. I think this app has an incredible future in the education system. I remember when I was in university for music, we used to have to go to this specific office that was in this old hallway to get our music to play with like the concert band and the orchestra and stuff like that. And quite often they would give us photocopies, but sometimes they would give us like, 13 by 20 gigantic pieces of paper that were like original scores, and they'd say, if you damage them, you're gonna owe us money, take care of them for a full semester, bring them to school Tuesdays and Thursdays. I very specifically remember at the end of the semester ironing music to give it back to the office. It's just such a dated system, and something like this really fixes that. But even imagine at like a lower level, like for elementary school students, to be able to teach them how to actually write music and playback music in a really, really fast-paced environment. Like you don't get that when you're writing music with pen and paper because it doesn't play it back for you. So this is a really great tool to not only teach kids how to write music, but to inspire them to compose, because then they can actually hear what they're doing. Like writing music is a lost art. I had to figure out how to write a quarter rest again. I see them all the time. I forgot how to write it. And when I tried in StaffPad for the first time, it didn't like what I was doing and it wouldn't recognize it because I just kind of put a squiggle. I forgot. So it's really cool that an app like this will reteach those skills, and it really brings back that composer to paper connection. Now, I haven't even touched on StaffPad Reader. This is an entirely separate app that goes hand in hand with StaffPad. What's crazy about this, it's multiple device. So think of a conductor coming in, opening up a score, and then dishing out parts to everybody who has StaffPad Reader open. You can literally pick your part and open it like you're opening music, and the conductor can play the part and you can watch your part playing, like the violin one or whatever it may be. The conductor can then lean in and circle parts for you, transpose, can do anything in real time, and that's gonna update on all of the iPads around the room. They can circle parts, they can erase parts. It's modular music in a way. It's fascinating. And when they turn pages, yours turns pages too. It's literally doing the work of printing out parts for everybody instantly. And the best part is if you make changes, that changes on the fly. You think of musical theater, and you know how much they, cut songs and move songs around or bring songs down a key if the singer can't quite hit it. Now doing that in real time, the singer comes in, they have a cold, and they say, hey, can we take this down a second? Like I won't be able to hit that note today. Sure, no problem. Hey band, we're bringing this down a second. Check over your runs and make sure they all still feel okay. That's crazy. That would have taken an hour to print out parts and, transfer your markings over. Now that's real time. One common use that I use Sibelius for is to do up lead sheets. I do them for a pop band configuration. So typically what I'm doing is slash notation, and then I'm also adding chords over those. And I need it to be pretty flexible because I'm also adding notes for certain musicians at certain times, or putting in things like, horns play this shot only second time, that kind of thing, but typically all on one staff. So it's quite a lot that I'm asking out of one staff, and I wanted to see if this could be a substitute for Sibelius. Now I think it was a little bit quicker for me in Sibelius, but again, that's because I use Sibelius all the time, and StaffPad's still pretty new for me, so there were a couple of features that I did have to hunt for. I did have some trouble getting these chord symbols to show up on the offbeats. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, but for me this is a little bit of a concern because this is something that I do quite often. I was able to do a little workaround here using smaller slash heads on the offbeat rhythms, and it works, but it looks a little bit weird. Some of the cons, I have to say the writing detection is really good. I wouldn't say it's great. I would say it's just shy of great. I'm being a little bit picky because it's super cool and it's super intuitive. They've done a really awesome job with that. I just noticed there were quite a few times where it didn't get what I was inputting, and partly I think that's because using an Apple Pencil feels really weird for me still. I think I've had about 3 or 4 crashes since I got it. Now it does save your work automatically, so everything's always saved, which is great. I've never lost anything, but I've had a few more crashes than I think is reasonable. It might also be because I'm on the iPad Air, which just came out 3 weeks ago, so I'm gonna excuse that one and say it might just be the iPad Air causing that. Something I noticed is the erase weight is kind of strange. So I've noticed that sometimes I have to press so hard that I see like a bit of a ripple, like that kind of rainbow ripple in my display where I'm pressing, like if you push on a TV. It feels weird doing that on a new iPad where you have to kind of like really press hard. I might be doing something wrong again, so I'm not sure. It might be the iPad Air again. And of course, the last thing is the lead sheet functionality. I would 100% pay like 40 bucks for a lead sheet bundle where it's just like all the tools that you would need for making a basic lead sheet. That would be awesome. I would absolutely love something like that. Speaking of money, let's talk dollars. So StaffPad comes in at $89 US, which is about $120 Canadian, which at first feels a little bit expensive. It certainly felt that way to me at first, until I started really dialing into the feature set and the target audience for this app. And I think it's really quite fair, especially when you consider where the competitors are at. First of all, they are years behind, like years behind. And a lot of the time they're charging significantly more. So for me, I look at this app as almost like an extension of Sibelius. I look at it like, you know, a $120 extension that allows me to use Sibelius on my iPad. In fact, it has better sounds and I can do all these things on my iPad, which is incredibly mobile, and then just, you know, swap them, dump them onto the computer. I can send a XML file to Sibelius, open it up there, edit, send it back, whatever I need to. So it's to me, it's really an extension of Sibelius. I think it's really nice to see a company competing in this relatively stagnant water. Like, I don't think there's been many advances in the composition or music notation area. It's been pretty still for as long as I can remember. So it's nice to see a company pushing the envelope. So should you buy StaffPad? Well, I think the question is more, should you use a tablet or should you use a desktop? And now I don't think that a tablet is ever gonna replace a desktop. They're two different experiences. And if you're comfortable with those trade-offs, then it's definitely a no-brainer. Is this gonna replace Sibelius or MuseScore or Dorico? No, I don't think so. I don't think that they're trying to. I think that it's perfectly different and I kinda like it that way. For now, this is just a great tool to be creative and to stand out of the composer's way to let you tell your story. Well, that's about it for me. I hope that this video was immensely helpful for you. If it was, please feel free to throw a like down below. It really does help me out. And stick around for some more music tech, audio tech, recording, you name it. See ya.